Meeting called to order. Today is Tuesday, April 9th. It is now 6 PM. Town Council fiscal year 20 public hearing in Town Council Chambers, 1170 Main Street, West Warwick, Rhode Island.
Councilman Licciardi.
Here.
Councilwoman Williamson.
Here.
Council Vice President D'Amico.
Here.
Council President Goslin.
Here.
And Councilman Messier is absent. There is a quorum on record. Public hearing on the proposed FY20 July 1, 2019 to June 30th of 2020 municipal budget.
Ernie, we'll start off with you. Any changes, anything we should know about? It's been a week.
Yes. Our finance director forwarded the council the revised budgets for capital changes as well as the revised departmental changes. She also has some information as to the current status of the levy, where we are, and the breakdown, and some information on a estimated guesstimate of a rate. So I believe that it's appropriate for Kristen to go over the information that she has.
So I gave you a spreadsheet, and at the top it lists in the first column, it's pretty self-explanatory, the old assessed values that were for this current budget, fiscal year 19, and would the new appraisal. These are the numbers as of today, and remember they are a moving target as you know we get more pricing of vehicles in and tangible annual returns come in. I mean, it's not going to change significantly, but this is not the final certified rule. So in the columns I kind of highlighted in black there with the black outline is the growth. This is the growth that we incurred with the new appraised values. And then I broke down the percentage of growth for the different categories. So based on that, I did two scenarios. One where, what we did last year, where we applied last year would be the increase, but where we would apply a decrease evenly among all the categories, with the exception of tangible. And then scenario 2 would be where I kind of tailored the decrease to the increase in each category. And then I gave a couple of scenarios at the bottom where with 3 different, these are actually multifamily houses, and one based on scenario 2 with the tiering of the tax rate decrease, and tax rate scenario 1 where we evenly decrease it across the board. Any questions?
No, just,
Anything I can further explain?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you can see it,
Yeah.
think about it.
But it really does paint the scenarios at the bottom paint a pretty good picture, to kind of give you direction on how we want to tackle the tax rates for this year. You can see the difference in the increase of this particular 3 buildings. Tax bill in total vastly differs with the 2 different scenarios.
what am I looking at here? When I go to scenario 1 and scenario 2,
Yeah,
when it says old value,
so this is the value,
which one's single family, which one,
so this is all.
They're all multifamily.
This is all multifamily.
all multi?
Yeah, these are actually 3 actual properties that I used as an example. So this would be the old value of this, I didn't give addresses, but these are actual properties, and then the new value, the change in their tax bill, and the percentage increase of their new appraised assessed values.
Right. And the same scenarios can be placed on, residential as well. Different values in the 2 scenarios.
Scenario 1 scary.
Yes, I agree. For that particular category, yes.
All right, now that we can digest that, any questions?
Got time.
So Kristen, this is for this year, correct? If we're sitting in these seats next year at this time, what happens to these numbers? Is there another increase?
It depends on what happens with the assessed values. So we do, the assessed value should stay steady.
Yeah, they
because
won't
we
change,
We
right.
do a 3-year.
Right.
So they would be the same, so then it would be just based on the levy increase. But the values will change a little based on, building permits and different vehicles and different
But if-
tangible property.
But if
there's
there's
no
no
rebound.
changes, from this year to next year,
The
the
rate,
valuation will stay the same.
correct,
I mean, obviously, if somebody's putting a deck on their house, that's gonna change. If somebody puts a pool in their yard, that's gonna change. That's all permitted and reassessed.
correct,
That's per owner's will,
right.
per se.
Mhm.
But as far as what I think Councilman's asking is, if my house is valued at $278 today,
Uh-huh.
it's gonna be valued at $278 if I make 0 changes next year.
Right.
It should be for 3 years.
So
Correct.
if the levy, all right, I'm just gonna throw out numbers, I don't know any numbers, so if the levy goes down for a tax increase, okay? For an increase this year, if the percentage is, say, 2%, and next year it's 4%.
As far as the levy increase?
As far as the percentage of the tax increase, you're proposing a
So
3,
they're two really different things. So the levy is the amount that we can spend above what we spent last year.
Mhm.
So that's capped at 4%. But then you have to spread all the value to that levy. So there's not gonna be a direct relationship between the increase in the levy and the increase in the tax rate. We could have new businesses come in, we could have new developments. So if the appraised values go up, it's going to help the tax rate, even if we were at the 4% levy increase.
I think what my request is at the financial town meeting that's explained. Because there's a lot of, people aren't understanding exactly what's going to happen based on the reevaluations. And I think what we needed in the beginning was we needed the evaluation company to do a presentation in
Right.
front of the council and to the people. I think that would have cleared up a lot of questions. Because the people at least that call me are worried because it's coming out of their pocket and they're worried, I can't afford it. How do I pay for this? What's going to happen? And there's a lot of unknowns, and I don't have all those answers. And I don't want to give an answer if I don't know what it is.
Right.
So that's my request at the FTM, that somebody is going to keep people's minds at ease, or at least allow them to make a decision now versus what's going to happen in the future. Is that possible to do?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
All set, Ernie?
Yes.
Council. We met last week, we discussed cuts. I think we have less than $75,000 in cuts on the board right now. I just want to point out, $75,000 in cuts is on a $100 million budget, is like dental floss. It's very thin, it's not, I think everybody's going through this budget based upon what the town managers asked for. I agree with the positions that we talked about, myself, this is just my opinion, that we talked about last week. All the rest, I mean, we're talking about nickels and dimes, $1,000 here, $1,000 there. I mean, we're gonna have another meeting, but my question is, do we let it go to the taxpayers and let them vote yes or no? It's their decision. I mean, how much more, I mean, unless you have significant cuts tonight, how much more can you cut? Or where can you cut, is the question. So, I mean, that's just my opinion. I mean, we're banging our heads off the table here every day, the department heads are here, and when I leave here, I'm getting questioned, are you really gonna cut $1,000 from that, or $500 from that? And I kinda look at myself in the mirror and say, what are we doing here? We're bickering for hours over $1,100, $1,200, we're beating each other up. Unless you come up with 2% or 1% of that that tax increase, I mean, I don't know what we're doing here. I mean, it's up to the council. If you have any ideas, be more than happy to listen to them tonight, but I just, after last meeting, I sat there and I thought about a lot of things, and I'm like, you know, I can say we should not add things that we don't need at this point. I really feel that way. But things we need, things that are gonna help the town, improve the town, I mean, we're gonna bicker about $1,000 here, $1,000 here. At the end of the night, we saved $10,000. We saved actually less than a penny on the tax rate.
But it's not a bad exercise to go through,
No,
to
it's
have
not.
people explain the reasoning behind
Correct.
their asks in a particular budget.
I'm not taking
so-
that away from anybody, I just, like I said, last meeting, we went over about $50,000. And 20 of that was through library salaries or whatever it may be. And again, I'm just,
Most of it's nickel and dime stuff in a budget this big.
I'm just throwing it out there as the council. Anybody from the public? Any department heads have anything to say, or? Come on up. Just state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Andrew Vos, 35 Red Bond Court, Cranston, owner of some rental properties in Natick. I did a lot of thinking last week, too, after the meeting, and then after the news this week, what I've heard on, read in the paper and heard on talk radio, and this has nothing to do with you guys, but it has to be considered. I don't know if you guys are considering the bills that are going on in the General Assembly right now. H 5437, Senate 512 is the Evergreen contracts, back up again this year. You guys have no say in that, I understand, but it affects what happens here. Because if that stuff passes, we're screwed. So I've been on the phone with my local reps. I called Speaker Mattiello, I called Senate President Ruggiero, I called my local reps. I don't know if anyone from here is calling the West Warwick reps, but we need to put a stop to this stuff. Another one is the 5260 and Senate 511, which is the arbitration, which again is so anti-taxpayer. We're going to get buried if they let this stuff go through, to an in mediation or arbitration. I don't quite understand the wording, which term means what, but it's again anti-taxpayer. And then the last one, which is the new one that it's got me steaming, H 5662, which is the new overtime proposal for firefighter, going against the federal approval of 53 hours. They want to reduce it to 42. That will absolutely bankrupt cities and towns. It will kill West Warwick.
Believe it or not, it's
And-
not that effective in West Warwick, because
Well-
that's about what our guys do a week. It's
All right.
44 hours. So
Well,
it's-
throughout the rest
so-
of the state, it will.
So that's what I'm saying.
And,
like,
and
for
it's
instance, like-
just another stab in the back to the taxpayer is what it is.
But again, to West Warwick, because I
Yep.
was concerned about that when I first heard it on the news, and I looked, our West Warwick firefighters, I think it's 44 hours a week. 42, come on up.
I actually
So it's
asked-
not
Yeah,
going to
but
affect.
no,
I
all right.
actually asked the town manager and the fire
All right.
chief to look into that when that was on the
All
front
right.
page of the paper, and the impact, we are told, is minimal.
Contractual,
No.
right now, we're working a 42-hour work.
I understand.
week, And after 42 hours, that stop overtime after that.
And that bill
That's
will,
already
that
in
bill,
the contract, so that bill would
Will
support
not
what's
apply.
already in our
so for us,
contract.
we're in good shape in West Warwick,
Okay.
but.
Well, I also,
Cranston
yeah, no, I know,
or-
it affects a
or
ton of
East Greenwich,
towns,
you might
and
see
it's
a
just, it just doesn't stop. It's death by 10,000 paper cuts, because every little thing, a beach fee, granted, none of this has anything to do with you guys, it's just statewide stuff. It's just stab you here, stab you there, pinprick you to death, and it just can't continue. I got my Nerval, my appeals for the revaluations came back, and I'm gonna be filing my new paperwork after I receive my tax bill to appeal these again, because this is ridiculous. One property got zero reduction, the other two got pennies, a couple of $1,000s. So I'll be reappealing these. Do you have any idea what the tax rate's gonna be yet for commercial, for rental property, multifamily, because after seeing this, and after hearing what's going on here, and after talking about just reducing $75,000 from the budget, this is insanity. We cannot afford this. I got a suggestion for this year's budget, zero increases, 0% increase. Level fund it, no extras, no nothing. We cannot afford it. I'm up to here. I was gonna wait to move out of Rhode Island until my kid finished college. I may move now. If all this stuff in the state and in the town goes through, it'll bankrupt me. I can't afford all this. It would be cheaper for me to pay out-of-state tuition for him to come back to Rhode Island and pay out-of-state tuition than it would to stay here and pay this stuff. It's just unsustainable. When do a lot of like when a lot of the contracts come up for renewal? Like is the fire?
All three contracts are being negotiated as we speak.
Okay. And who negotiates that? I know the union has a rep. I know, is it the council, the manager, or?
So right now, the manager, labor attorney,
Okay. And who's representing the taxpayer?
some council members are attending.
All right.
Councilwoman
Because it just seems like,
has
It-
attended
it's-
all of them, am I correct?
and I spoke to the chief last week after the meeting, and, it's absolutely nothing personal. It's not personal, it's mathematics. It's the numbers don't work. Can't pay our mortgages, can't pay our taxes, can't pay our insurances if this stuff goes through. It's nothing personal. But the numbers have to work. The taxpayers are getting killed. And I'm not, this is not on you guys either. I'm not taking this out on you. I'm just frustrated. This is previous councils and previous managers who gave away the store for some of this stuff. I'm sorry, that's how I label. I call it giving away the store. Other people call it negotiating a contract. And I don't blame the union for getting what they were given. If some previous council signed off on it, or a previous town manager was dumb enough, just like in Cranston, the mayor was dumb enough to sign off on some of the contracts we got over there, shame on the taxpayers for not showing up. We got what we asked for.
Thank you. Bert?
Bert Mollahan, Monterey Drive. Mr. President, I think I found a typo. If you go to the third page, and it starts out with department, the town manager. And if you go down to the town sergeant, which is 1085, you see that?
What page is it from?
Third page from the end,
Oh, from the end?
from the end,
Oh,
third
from the
page
end.
from the end. Look for the town sergeant, the third page from the end, there's a whole listing, looks like this, guys.
Oh, okay. You're looking at, the salaries?
Yeah, now look for the town sergeant.
Page 32.
What page is that?
Did you find it?
32?
Thank you.
Town sergeant is 1085, right?
Yep.
All right. And now, if you go one below the town sergeant, which isn't in bold type, they got another 1085 town sergeant with the finance director, finance.
Yep.
That has to be a typo,
No, that's the finance department,
Yeah.
that's a different, so,
but it can't be 1085.
no, that becomes
That's
1100.
your total.
That's your total
That's
at
a
the end.
total, Bert.
So if you look at 1065, and 1060, in between 1060 and 1065, 1065 has two lines, and it says 1065 Board of Canvassers total. That's the two 1065s added up. No typo, it's just basically saying it's a total.
So the finance is 1100,
So if you go to 1085 where it's in bold,
correct, that's in total.
That's the total of 754.
Stops there.
There
Oh,
should
it
be a little
stops there.
space there,
Starts.
right.
That's what the bold stands for.
Those numbers are up to that.
but this doesn't come under the
No.
category
No.
of 1085?
That's
No.
it, no, that's it, no.
That's 1100.
Okay. All right,
No, thank you.
Kristen, do you have a highlight, I'm going through some of my notes here. Do you have a highlight of stuff that we were talking about changing, didn't change, and we'll
Yes.
wait until this meeting?
Yeah, I put it on the sheet I sent you. The two things that we still had left hanging were, you wanted to readdress the library, the salaries for the staff and the department head. And then,
Go ahead, Kristen. Hold on one second, Brett.
we were gonna go back and talk about the grant, well, we're going forward with the grant, so there's really nothing else to talk about with that. The housing board you took care of, you spoke with them. Capital, we addressed last week, I don't know if there's any more capital that anyone wants to discuss. But all of the notes I had, I checked marks next to them that we addressed them, so that's pretty much what's left.
Bert?
Mr. President, could you refresh the audience memory on what the average increase was for the individual houses and businesses? I think you did that a couple of meetings ago, but I forgot to write it down.
Me too.
For
Got it in an
individual
email.
homes.
Hold on, I got it in an email. Give me 1 second.
You mean the valuation?
Yeah, I had all the, I announced all the, actually, is it on there?
It's on the spreadsheet I gave you.
First row, residential, 26.23.
I thought you said it was 13% for single-family homes. The average went up.
26.
Actually, it's 26.23%.
Yep. So the average, these are averages on this sheet?
So that's the exact percent growth increase.
Total
in
growth.
total,
Okay.
but,
So I think we're gonna talk,
So
because
it can vary by,
Yeah.
correct.
So I went by average last time that I
Right.
received from the tax assessor.
Right.
And I'm not sure if this is the same exact numbers, but residential primary single percent of growth was 26%. Residential code 3, 19.41. Residential code 4, 5, 6, 7, 24, 14, 98, 10, 15 / commercial, 8.52. Residential code 40, 50, 30, 2 multi, 35.88. Residential frozen market value, which we do have a few that are still on frozen taxes. I think
Right.
it's down to less than 5. That went down 95.76%. And that was when West Warwick offered, is that exemptions or is that,
The 95%?
yeah?
Yeah, go ahead.
We're changing the way that exemptions were put on accounts. They had been noted as frozen accounts.
Yep.
With a frozen amount of tax, which really wasn't the right way to do it, because it didn't show what a property was truly valued at and how much we had to exempt to get it down to the tax for some of the properties that had incentives, Camp Bow Wow, Lippet Mill, there's a couple of other ones out there. So we changed, that's why there's a 95% drop in that category. There really is only 3 actual frozen properties, residential properties in the town.
So 3 left.
Right, right. Out of however many they had, they're being phased out because you changed the law on. There
Well,
is
as it
no more.
changes- As it
Yeah,
changes ownership, that goes away.
that goes
Just like
away.
Coventry did
Yeah.
also.
Yeah, there is no more frozen tax in West Warwick.
Tangible was down minus 2.3%. Motor vehicles was down minus 11.38%. Was that because of the state aid,
The phase out.
the phase out? And again, that's something that, you know, the state has cost the town basically. We have $394,000 that we had to figure out where we're getting it because the tax phase out isn't working as they said it was going to work. I think Lieutenant Governor McKee met with us prior to the phase out, and it was prior to both of you, and he said, this is not gonna be good for certain towns, and that was Central Falls, West Warwick. This is not gonna be good, he said, and he wasn't supporting of this whatsoever, and he warned everybody, and here it is now, 3 years later. He was 100% right. And I remember, you know, when the state does and promises us money, you know, we go back to 2010, where Governor Kacheri cut $2 million state aid to the town of West Warwick and put that on the taxpayers in the town. So you know, those are the things that we have to figure out here at the council. So we got thrown a $394,000 bill before our budget was even set in stone. Any questions? Any other comment before we start moving on? Okay, how does the council want to do this? Want to go page by page again, or do you want to go, you have any recommendations at this point? You guys tell me how you want to do it. Or you want to touch the bullet points?
I think we should go with the bullet points.
I agree.
I think there's, I mean, we can look at here and cut a number of things. But in the end, what are we cutting? $1,000, $5,000 here. It's just, really, what does it mean? So, if it's left in the hands of the people who vote, and they vote to vote the budget down, fully understanding what that would mean, then it comes back to us, and we're looking at making those cuts.
So that's usually how I end the meeting when it comes to the public session, is what happens and what's the plan if the budget gets voted down? You know, that's the question I have. I always ask that in the end, because it goes before the taxpayers. It's their choice. And as I could say, the last couple of years, you know, one year was overwhelming that they supported it. Last year it was close. This year it could be closer. Could be opposite. It could be they voted down. We as a council have been lucky that the taxpayers have supported our budget. But again, what happens if they don't? You know, and so I just want, and Ernie, do you have a plan B just in case?
Well, if the voters, through the referendum, choose not to approve the budget that's before them, the current fiscal year budget would be in place, and the town would have to go back and review its budget and present another budget that, unless I'm wrong, that would go before the voters at a lesser amount for their review and approval. And I would also say that when you look at the way the budget's constructed, the school department has a zero increase in their local appropriation, so any reductions would have to come from the town side of the budget. And when you look at how the budget's constructed, there are fixed costs, many fixed costs, which is going to have to, you have to go through fixed costs, what you have to do, what legally do you have to do, and make a reduction and propose it to the voters for their approval. So that would be the only plan B we would have.
My concern is, you know, as I'm looking through this and basically nickel and diming it, which it's an exercise, it takes a long time, and really what do you get out of it? But as I'm looking at this year, I'm also thinking of next year. And the school department didn't come to us with any increase this year. For what, fifth or sixth year in a row?
No, third.
No,
So
more than that.
it was a $900,000 year, don't.
Well, all right,
It was
so.
a $900,000 year out of the last.
So
5
my,
years.
well, my point is, they're going to be coming to us, if not next year, the year after, asking for more money. And with employees getting increases, just year to year, as that goes up, longevity goes up, it all builds up. And we're at a 4% right now, which is tight. What happens when we max out and we have to go over that 4%?
Well, you cannot go over the 4%. There's only certain criteria to go over 4%.
What if you need more than the 4%?
Well, first of all, I'll answer one question you have, because that's why you look at, multi-year projections. Now, the budget this year fully funds the recommendation from our healthcare advisor on what we should fund, and that was a large increase. And that's what's in this year's budget. Now, if approved, next year, the healthcare increases will not be anywhere near as dramatic as they are this year. Could be 5% lower, it depends. So you won't have a large increase in healthcare. So that will give some room capacity to help absorb the school increase, which is coming in FY21. They've indicated FY20 end there will be an increase. So the way this budget is constructed, part of that can be offset, if you will, by a less increase in healthcare. But again, you have the tax rate based upon your expenses. So the budget was looked at a little bit with some forethought with the school coming back in to the equation in FY21. The question about what happens, I mean, certainly, you know, you go and look at your required expenses as you go forward, like anything else. What do you have to do? What are fixed costs? What are your required costs? What are optional costs? What are you required to do by law that you have to have services? Are there some services that you don't have to have? So again, these were all the types of questions that would be asked. They're asked now, and they'll be asked in the future. And you look forward and see what can happen. I mean, if the economy still is good, still going on, there are many revenues that are based upon economies, fees, clerk fee, building fees, those type of things. But again, it's like anything else. If you have a fixed amount that you can raise or a fixed amount that you're willing to go to, then you have to prioritize what your expenses are to fit within whatever parameter that's set.
Okay. Thank you.
Bert?
Mr. President, we have one good omen looking towards this budget. In the 48 years that I've lived here in this town, the budget has always been passed. About 25 years ago, there was an organization called We the People, and they damn near turned the budget down. And that was about 25 years ago, and that was the toughest vote that the town had ever had on a budget.
2012, they voted it down too.
Explain right to the people like it always is. I'm sure they're gonna pass this one, even though it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt a lot of retirees, and I'm one of them.
It's gonna hurt everybody.
You know, you hear these people, well, you're gonna move down to Florida, they're gonna spend 6 months down in Florida, so they don't have to pay taxes there. That's not the right thing to do.
All right, the bullet points, we had the library, what else?
Just like, the two leftover things I have were the library salaries and department head salary, that we wanted to go back over.
What page is that?
Towards the end. Library is page 25. Oh, page 25. And the,
No.
28 on yours.
I think the director would like to speak. I know he talked to me outside, so if he wants to come up and give us a better explanation from last time.
Thank you to the council. Yeah, I just want to say that we're the little guy here. I've said this before, we take up less than 1% of the budget. There are no capital expenses for the town regarding the library. There's no overtime at the library. No, we're not fire, safety, or sewer. We don't address big physical things. We address intangible things such as culture, curiosity, creativity, and some practical things such as lifelong learning, finding a job, caring for your children, or maybe just being a safe place outside your home where you can go and be with other people. things that contribute to the quality of life in this town, which is very, very important. So maybe we're not so little, but maybe sometimes it seems that way, and I think it's because we've become so good at doing so much with so little. But I really doubt that all those thousands of West Warwick residents who use the library are going to object to a relatively small increase in the scheme of things to help ensure our viability into the future. In the last 5 years, we've lost 7 librarians to other libraries because we can't pay them. And right now, we have 2 young, dynamic, creative librarians who I know we're going to lose if we can't give them nominal increases. We're talking about $12,000. Most of the rest is taken up by those medical increases, and we don't even offer family medical. And it's not for 1 person or 3 people or 6 people. It's for an entire library organization. 9 full-time people, 14 part-time people who work their hearts out for this town.
So you were proposing 50 cents for your part-timers per
Yes.
hour. They average about, what, 20 hours a week?
They average 19, they work 19 hours a week. They average 19 hours a week. Most of them make between $10 and $11 an hour.
I agree with what the director's saying. I mean, the library budget is less than 1% of the entire budget. What he's asking for in terms of a raise is truly minuscule, especially when you look at the pay across the state. You know, I really feel in all aspects of services, we need to be competitive with other municipalities. You know, these people are highly educated, they give 100% of themselves. This is such a great service for the town. You know, if you think back a few years ago, when the library wasn't there, you know, people were dying for this to come back, and, you know, we're slowly rebuilding it. So my feeling is, you know, let's retain what we have.
So if I'm doing my math right, 14 employees that are working 19 hours a week at 50 cents, a full year out of that rate, out of your increase, if you're sticking with the 50 cents, 6,900 of that money is going towards your part-timers.
Yeah.
So I want to make that clear. Everybody was like thinking it was, at the time, we thought there was 6 full-timers and 6 full-timers only.
No, there are a lot more people, and that has been pointed out. And so it looks like your salaries are going up just under 12. Your department head salary goes up just under 2, for a total of close to 14. Again, if you do that by 14 I just...
And I will say, and I brought this up, I know my boss came from one of your programs. I brought that up. He's from West Greenwich. He uses the library rather often. I've always pointed out, and other council members have also pointed out, the services that the library and the senior center get with the amount of budget they have. It's amazing what both departments do and help out throughout the community. I know even you allow visitations, DCYF visitations, so on and so forth there. And, you know, it's, you know, it is my ward. I've seen it when it was shut down, and I heard about it. And we have a lot of children in this town. Unfortunately, they don't go out and spend $100 a month on internet, so they have to go to the library. They have to go there and take care of their homework. And you'll be shocked if you walk in there how many kids and how many parents are actually there doing homework and whatever else. I think it's a very big asset. And you know, having a master's degree, and anybody who has college tuition fees and whatever you're paying back, $31,000, that's not even, I want to say it's almost welfare level. And, you know, that's poverty level. 28,000 is considered poverty level. And when you're going 4 years of college, coming out with 31,000.
I think, isn't it 5 years for a librarian today? Is it still 4 or is it 5 years?
You get your bachelor's degree, and then it's a 2-year master's degree.
I think the schedule that was handed out talks about change in town appropriation of being 33,000, and I think that opens some minds. But when you actually go back and you look at that, 9,000 of it is medical and 4,000 of it is pension, and
Right.
there is a good deal of it that was not in the control of the library's budget.
The medical has been out of our control that's what's hurting our budget all the way around.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, like I said, we don't even offer family. It's just individual.
So, yeah.
So that being said, I'd make a motion that we just approve as presented on page 28.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed with an explanation. We haven't, again, I believe in culture, I believe in the arts. I've seen what you do at the library, and you're a great advocate for your department. To me, it's not about, they're underpaid, I mean, there's no question. But so are the police, so are the fire. We have a third highest in tax increase. I mean, none of it makes any sense. But we have contracts in negotiation right now. Unfortunately, it's at the same time as the budget. They weren't passed before the budget, so we have really nothing to go by. I wouldn't be premature and offer this until the contracts are done.
Councilman,
So
I
it's not personal,
I respect-
please. It's just
I respect your
It's
opinion,
not.
and I totally agree with somewhat what you're saying, except for the fact, do you see an overtime line here in the library? There's not one employee in there that compensates any of their pay with overtime. So with police, fire, municipal, when I say municipal, DPW or whoever, can supplement with overtime. Library doesn't. So I just want to point that out. They have no opportunity for, you don't have a minimum manning. Somebody calls out, they're not calling somebody in to bring them up to staff the library. They're maintaining.
I understand.
No, that's why I just want to point that out, so like,
But
when everybody
that's my-
says, why are you giving a raise? I want to say, they don't have the opportunity to get promoted. They don't have library 1 to library 10.
I understand all
You know,
that. And it's-
they don't have lieutenants, they don't
And
have
it's not
captains.
personal, that's just that's my explanation on it.
Yeah, we're still catching up, too. As I've said before, our budget is the same as it was in 2004, which was 16 years ago. I think we need just a little bit, little steps so that the staff doesn't become so frustrated.
Well, I think you got your wish, 3-1.
Thank you. I thank the council very much on behalf of myself, the board, and the
This
staff.
budget gets voted up.
Thank you.
Thank you. What else was there, Kristen?
That's all I have.
Is there anything else from the council? Last call from the public. Speak now or forever hold your peace. That being said,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Dave, you want to for a couple minutes?